Well, the other day I talked about 4 ways to love God more. Right? Well, today, and I didn't grab Bobby's watch, so we could be in trouble. 6 ways to solve the world's deep divisions. 6 ways to solve the divisions. Now, I actually had written 2 sermons for this, for today, and I couldn't figure out which one I was going to use until about 1 o'clock this morning. I got up for 3 hours, combined the both of them. So 2 hours worth of material, I can probably keep it to 2 hours and 15 minutes. We should be good. That's about when the tape runs out, the new tapes that I bought, so we should be good. Right? Everybody's laughing. All right, let's hope I'm kidding. And I will tell you that, well, I won't tell you that because we're taping. Race divides people. Blacks hate whites, whites hate blacks, Hispanics hate whites, whites hate Hispanics. The Chinese and the Japanese have hated each other for generations. It does not matter where you go in this world. See that? I put a timer on my desktop. You think I'd start it? Absolutely not. It does not matter where you go in this world, racial division is present in every culture and every society that currently exists or has ever existed in this earth. Think back to the Good Samaritan. Think back to the things you know about the Bible. Promoters of racial division thrive in the United States today, especially in America. The KKK, Nazi hate groups, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, they're all ignorant people that state ignorantly their opinions, and people look to them as leaders when they don't even know what a true leader is. Politicians divide people. Here in the U.S., we have Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Tea Party members, and multiple factions within those groups. They can't even agree amongst themselves. And not one of them is wrong about anything. I saw this morning where the entire Democrat Party got up from the hearings on Benghazi when the parents of some of the young men and women that were murdered there came in to give their testimonies. All but one of the Democrats got up and left the room. The division is amazing. Religions divide people. I once heard of a man who had been stranded on an island for many years, explaining how he had survived. I built a hut for my main house. I dug a hole and I put a smaller hut on top of that for my bathroom. But what got me through the loneliest, the darkest nights, and the many years on this island alone was my faith in God, he said. I knew someday I would be rescued. And that's why I built that hut over there. And he pointed off in the distance. The camera panned over there. And I used it as my church. The interviewer noticed a hut a little farther still off in the distance, a little more weathered, a little bit of disrepair. And he said, "What about that hut?" The gentleman answered, "Oh, that's my old church. That religion is for crazy people." Obviously not a true story, but I like the point that it brings out. Today, people are filled with opinions. Let me see if I can get this to work. People are filled with opinions. Maybe that's always been so, but today, it's certainly in our face everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. TV, radio, talk radio, Facebook, blogs, microblogs, tweets, 500 channels of TV. Opinions are everywhere. How divided are you? What do you stand for? Do you truly stand for it, or could you be persuaded to stand for an opposing view? Maybe a moderate view, maybe something in the middle. Could you be swung one way or the other? Could your convictions be changed? We naturally first think about religious convictions and we say, no way, absolutely not, I know the truth. And we know we're not going to change those, but I'm talking about our character. And I'm talking about the things that we do every day and that make us who we are. Could those convictions be changed? Well, there are 6 spiritual things that the Bible talks about that every one of us can do to reduce the division in our lives, to reduce the battles that we have between what opinion we have or what we think about things or whatever. That's a good foundation on which we can base our lives. 6 simple instructions God gives to mankind to live in harmony with each other. That would stop the strife that mankind's rule and his vast, deep, educated, and wise knowledge has brought about. Right? Obviously being very facetious there. The first of those 6 is this: bring back the family that God intended. God, in the beginning of creation, made man and woman. Genesis 1, verse 26. So let's turn to Genesis 1, verse 26. Everybody knows the story, but we'll read it anyways. Right? Genesis 1:26 says, "And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." Verse 27, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth." Homosexuals can't multiply. Single households without committing adultery can't multiply. Feminists can't multiply. Monks can't multiply. Catholic priests and nuns can't multiply. Sex change patients can't multiply. God created man and woman to start the human race because in his plan he knew that it would take a man and a woman to start a family. That's what it took. It's the foundation of a family. But have you ever wondered why he didn't just create a man, a woman, and a few children right from the start? Why not just get it all done right from the start? Why not just create a family as an example of how it should be? 1 son, 1 daughter, 3 sons, 3 daughters, all daughters. That's my cause. Why didn't he just do that? Well, believe it or not, it was just last year that I finally realized which came first, the chicken or the egg. Right? And as funny as that sounds, I've heard that all my life. And it's one of those sayings that you hear from the point that you're a kid. And if you really think about it, it's really confusing if you don't know the truth. Well, I've known the truth for 12 years, and it finally hit me last year what came first. God created everything with all of the pieces in place for them to reproduce after their own kind. So that's why he didn't create a family right off the bat. God knew that there should be a process in place. He knew that there must first be a joining of 2 people, as a man and a woman, as a husband and wife, and then as a father and mother. There is an order to things. Genesis 2:23. Genesis 2:23. "And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother." Leave his father and mother, not his father and father, not his father and his father's friend, not his father and his father's girlfriend. He shall leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Ephesians 5:23. Ephesians 5:23. And we've heard this one already. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Verse 25, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word. God had a plan. He created man and woman. He created husband and wife. And he created father and mother. In that order, for a reason. It is the basis of the family. And again, in Ephesians 5:31, it says, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. They act of unified accord. Now, I've been married for 23 years. We don't always act of unified accord. But at some point, we always come together. We always come together and talk about it. Sometimes my wife takes the lead, sometimes I take the lead. Right? Especially when it comes to rearing our children. Right? Sometimes she knows more about what's going on than I do. Right? Not that my kids would go and tell one story to one parent and another story to another parent. I don't think children do that, do they? Oops, wait a minute. Without a father and a mother, there is no family. And what is the fifth commandment? What does the fifth commandment say? Exodus 20, verse 12. It doesn't say, honor thy father and father. It says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. I thought about this, and I thought, think about if children had, first off, a family, and second off, the respect for their father and mother. Think about how many less murders there would be. How many less murders there would be. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine what it would be like. I remember running from my father once. Just once. He was faster than me. Both of my parents were up in there 6'1" and 6'3", so I don't know what happened to me. I got the short gene. But I remember running from him once and learning that I would never do that again. I think the children of the family would have that opportunity to do a lot more right things and a lot less wrong ones. Adam and Eve were not just the first of God's creation and created in his image. They were the first father and mother. This world has so perverted and made acceptable alternate families. And they have disobeyed the fifth commandment by perverting the honor of the office of mother and father in a family. A child raised in a homosexual home, a single-parent household, an orphanage, or anywhere other than a home intended by God cannot respect their father and mother because there is no father and mother. Strong words, I know. I know that even Cain and Abel had an issue, right? And they had a father and mother. Do you think it was easy after that? Think their father and mother said, oh, I don't know what to do? Or do you think they knew exactly what to do? Number 2, people have got to stop murdering one another in their hearts and physically. They have got to stop killing one another. Murdering. Sorry, I used killing there. I meant murder. Right? How many places can you think of today where murder is acceptable? You can go all around the world and you can find the guy in South Africa that murdered his girlfriend. Right? Or I don't know if the trial is over. I don't know if we know all the details. But it doesn't matter what country you're in, murder is against the law. There are still countries where if you commit murder, they stone you. That still happens. Today, thanks to an insidious corruption in society's perception of right and wrong, right, that gray area in the middle, that gray area where I was told by one of those Catholic priests that I launched on immediately after, God lives in the gray area. He's not all black and white. And I just sat there and I said, what? Who taught you that? Expletive. And he said, hey, watch your language or I'm going to kick you out of here. I said, forget it. I got up and left. I was out. An insidious corruption in society's perception of right and wrong. A number of groups got together and decided to rid us of that religion that gets in the way of them being able to freely practice murder. The National Organization for Women, all right, great feminist movement. Perverts, rapists, all the likes, they all got together and carefully planned and put in place people in positions of power that could slip their insidious plan in place and pervert people into thinking that pre-planned murder should be allowed by the courts in this country. That it should be a right for a woman to be able to commit murder without the death penalty, without the risk of it, without a lengthy trial, without jail term, without any penalty at all or any judgment. They polarized the issue with people who would scream things like, what about in the case of rape? What about in the case of incest? And other emotional epithets that eventually shut down and made people quiet enough that they got their mission accomplished. According to some estimates, there have been over 1.3 billion murders worldwide by this one acceptable form of murder alone since 1980. Since a court decision in this country in 1973, there have been over 56 million of these premeditated, pre-planned murders committed. Now, I want you to look at something else, just in contrast. In contrast, there have only been, I say that, the caveat to it, on average there are 40 murders per day in the United States, not including that other method. 40. That means that in the same time frame, there have been 587,000, a little less than 587,000 murders committed in the same time period. And the world says that one murder is acceptable, but another is not. Are you polarized? Have you joined the fight? Have you argued a side over this issue? The Bible says there is but one thing that is true about this issue. One thing and one thing alone, and it is repeated. Exodus 20:13. Thou shalt commit no murder. It doesn't say thou can commit some murders if it can justify it. It doesn't say that anywhere. It doesn't say that anywhere in the Bible. Right? People in this world confuse murder with kill. Right? God says, I want you to go out and I want you to wipe them out, kill them all. Right? It's different than murder. Premeditated is I sit there and I think about it and I really, boy, I'm going to get it. I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to fix them. It just bubbles and bubbles and bubbles. Or it's an answer to something that you shouldn't have done in the first place. Right? Number 3, we must stop committing spiritual adultery. We must. It always leads to physical adultery. Always. Without occurrence. Always leads to it. I was last night looking up a definition of a word. And on the Webster's page, On the dictionary page I was looking up. I don't know if it was Webster's or not. I shouldn't quote that. There were ads running down the side. The 10 hottest women in sports. The Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. The Detroit Auto Show. And there was a woman standing there like this in a bikini at the side of that. Right? See the cars. And I was thinking, see the cars? I can't see the cars. There's a woman standing in front of it. I can't see the curves on the car because I can only see the other curves. The Marlboro Man. And at the bottom of the page, and I don't know why I'm picked for this. I laughed. Remember when, I don't know if you remember when DVR and the ability to record programs on those digital recorders that you get with your cable service first came out? TiVo was the company. And I remember about 8 or 9 months after it came out, one of the funny things that happened was somebody published an article that said, my TiVo thinks I'm gay. Because they went through and they profiled all of the programs that someone was watching, and they determined they must want to watch every gay and homosexual program on TV, so it was suggesting that they start recording all these things. So I'm wondering what the message is down the side of the page, because the last thing at the bottom of the page was, you know, order your Speedo bathing suit now. I couldn't get off that page fast enough. Have you ever seen any of those things in your life? Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen it on the newsstand? I noticed, and this is years ago, I noticed that Cosmopolitan every once in a while will now put a brown piece of wood in front of their front cover because it's so racy. Matthew 5:27. Matthew 5, verse 27. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. I was going to say, thou shalt commit no adultery, but it's not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. A man cannot look at a woman and not have those thoughts go through his head. It is everywhere today. I don't know if anybody really realizes how much that permeates society. One of my favorite stories to tell, I do a lot of research into sentimental analysis. Part of my job lets me do analysis on people's sentiments. And one of the things that people are paying big money for now is you run a Super Bowl ad and they go out to all these Facebook and tweets and everything else, and they'll scan through that for about 20 minutes to see whether you responded positively or negatively. They scan hundreds of thousands of words, and they can determine from those words whether you feel positive or negative about the ad that just ran. And they know that within 10 minutes of the ad running. So if they want to, they can run the same ad again, or they can run a different ad in the Super Bowl. And that's not just them. I tell the story about in this research paper that I was reading, Target was in a lot of trouble because there was a man that was hollering, called Target, screaming at their customer service, I don't know what you're doing to my 15-year-old daughter and why you're sending her coupons for diapers, but knock it off. She doesn't need those. I don't know what you people are thinking. I have no idea. He was mad. I read the transcript from that. He was really mad. Right? Called him back 2 days later, and he says, well, I have to apologize to you because I went to my daughter and told her that, and she broke down crying. Told me that she's pregnant. Right? Target knew because of the things that she was buying. They know that there are certain times in life that you are likely to change your buying habits. When you get married, when you have a baby, and when you buy a house. And you change your buying habits and you become a customer for life. They know that. They've done the research. And they know that about you. So don't kid yourself for a moment to think that all these pre-programmed items from birth to respond to your urges are not designed to try and get you to do something they want you to do. In music, TV ads, billboards, I've seen it on those park benches now. I saw a Chevrolet dealer advertising their Chevys with a woman standing there leaning on the hood like this, their hip out. Ugh. It's everywhere, right? In the newspaper. None of it's good. It's a constant fight. And don't think for a moment that the subtlety of Satan can't get to even the best of men. David did it, and he was a man after God's own heart. Solomon had multiple wives and concubines. How many people have you known over time that have gone through a divorce because of adultery? How many people have you known? I can't count it on two hands anymore. I love my wife. I am so grateful to still be married to her. And I look around at all the people that I know that got married 20 years ago, and there's only a couple of them that are still married. Adultery is everywhere. And it has no respect for a father and mother. Absolutely none. It has no respect for a couple. It has no respect for a family. It has no respect for the children. And it has no respect for the very core of what God put in place from the beginning, which is Exodus 20:14. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Number 4 of the 6. Do not take anything that's not earned by you. One of the things, as I was listening to the sermon this morning, Arden said something that made my mind wander to, do you think that anybody, if you earned your salvation, you were doing really well? Do you think that somebody else could come up and steal that from you? Could they take that from you so that you didn't own your salvation anymore? So that you worked for it all your life and they just came and stole it out of your house? Can't happen. Right? Can't happen by an individual that comes in and steals it in the way that stealing means. I'm going to go in and take something that's not mine. They can't take your salvation. But how many times in your life, has someone boasted to you? And this is the thing that cracks me up, right? Just cracks me up. Someone boasts to me about something they're getting for free. I have had cable TV for 22 years without paying a dime. He's got a guy that I used to work with that just said that. He goes, it was so easy. He goes, I don't know what they did, but all of a sudden I've got all of my life. He goes, I don't even want to move because in this apartment I've got all of it and I don't pay for it. Right? Cable TV, internet, I've got free internet because this is another guy said to me, he goes, he says, I don't have to pay for internet, because I was asking what kind of high-speed internet he had in New Jersey. He says, I don't have to pay for it because my neighbor's got one and they don't secure it, so I just log on to his every day. I just stopped paying for it. Money, food, gas, many others. My wife had a situation where we did what we thought was the right thing, and in hindsight, I think I might have done it differently. She was walking through a local mall around our house, and she's walking through the mall, and there's a bag, a brown bag, was it, or an envelope or something? I don't remember what it was, but she picked it up, opened it up, and it was filled with money. It was filled with money. She calls me, she says, what do I do with this? And I said, go find the mall cops off in their office and turn it in there, give your name and number, and if nobody comes to claim it, they'll give it to you. Now, maybe it did go to the right person. My guess is the mall cops just got a $1,000 raise or whatever was in that envelope. These are all situations where it's very tempting, and it doesn't. These are even situations where you don't have to say, okay, next Tuesday I'm going to break the back window of their house because that's the one that nobody knows about. It's the one that's behind all those bushes. You don't even have to plan it that way. There are situations that drop in our lap where we're checked for our integrity, and we have to look at those things. We have to know that what it means to take something that's not yours. Right? You have to make those decisions. Some of those decisions are tough. I think in hindsight, in that case, I would have said, count the money, let them know what we've got, we'll hang on to it. If nobody claims it in 6 weeks, then we'll keep it. We'll notify the local police department that we've got it as well, and if nobody comes and claims it, we will still have the money, right? But I didn't, so never mind. You can't go back. That was long before I was even baptized. So I remember very early on in my life, and this is one of the things that I think set it for me. I remember very early on in my life, my grandfather owned a store in the front of his house. I speak of him very fondly. He's passed away since 1986. And no, he didn't go to be with the Lord. Just in case anybody was wondering, outside of this room, just on the tape, not anybody in the room. But he passed away in 1986. But when I was young, from very early on, I remember putting something shiny in my pocket. My grandfather he would give me, because he knew I liked shiny objects. And man, my aunts and uncles just hated me. And they hated me because my grandfather would give me the grease pencil and I'd hold a can up and he'd tell me what to write on it. And I would write it in 4-year-old letters all over that can with the grease pencil, right? And they hated that because they were never allowed to touch the grease pencil. It was all me. But I love that man. He was very early on. I remember him putting something shiny, or I remember putting something shiny in my pocket. In hindsight, he must have seen me because he asked me if I had it. And he was not happy with the fact that I had just put it in my pocket. To this day, I remember being horrified and scared. I loved my grandfather tremendously. I wanted him to always love me back. Always, always, always. My parents were going through a divorce, but my grandfather was my rock. He was amazingly good to me. I learned very early on from him and through my own fears that if I stole, I would damage my relationship with my grandfather. Even if I took something and he never knew about it, he still might, and I never wanted him to doubt me. Ever had that saying in your life? Have you ever had your parents say to you, you're talking, you're 40 years old, you're talking to your parents, and they say, yeah, that time you skipped out of school, yeah, I've known that forever. And you're sitting there going, I thought I got away with that. I thought I got away with that. Let me tell you about my life, right? I was always doing the right things when I was in high school, but in the first week of my senior year, I decided I was going to skip out. So I skipped out. I think I skipped out with my girlfriend at the time. We spent the day sneaking around behind houses and things like that, so we didn't get picked up by the truancy police. And in February of the next year, I got in a horrific car accident. Terrible car accident. And so it happened, I think it happened on a Friday, so there was Saturday and Sunday, and I was back home on Monday. And it's Monday afternoon, my father calls the school and he says, Brian's going to be out for the week because he's gotten a bad car accident on Friday. He's okay, but he's going to be out for 5 days. A woman in the office says, oh, that's no problem, Mr. Tinkler. We got your note last time. My father came upstairs, sat on the end of the bed, and he was laughing. And he goes, I don't know why you try and get away with anything. I got grounded from driving the car for a month. Rightfully so. But he might know, my grandfather might know, and if he doubted me, I equated him doubting my word to him not loving me, and that scared me. Right? If he doubted my integrity, I knew that was bad. I get aggravated when people question my integrity. I used to get very angry when they questioned my integrity. Right? Rear back, I'm looking at Bobby. Rear back, ready to go. Right? But you question who I am. Right? I will cut you down with words faster than you know, because I never had these. At work, they've implemented a new expense policy that requires a receipt for any expense over $10. I recently lost a receipt for a $10.29 lunch. And because I could not prove it, that I spent it with the receipt, I was denied reimbursement. I spoke with my manager about it. My manager said to me, he said, look, he goes, you're honest enough. He says, why don't you just pretend you drove to a customer and claim the mileage? I couldn't do it. And it's $10.29. As aggravated as I was, I couldn't do it. Right? It would damage my credibility, not to others, because nobody would know. Maybe my manager would, if it came in at exactly $10.29. See the way my mind worked? Right? I might bring it in for $10.54 so he didn't know. Right? But it would damage my credibility internally. And that would be something that I would struggle with. Now, I had that dilemma. There was no way that I was going to do that, right? But I was feeling pretty good. I was feeling pretty proud of my decision not to file that mileage. But don't worry. It was smacked back down within moments. And boom, I was back down in the dungeon with all my friends. So it was nice to come back to right where I belonged. God is very clear on stealing. Very, very clear. In some way, shape, or form, we all have things that have helped us form our conscience. He gives us that conscience because it nags at us to make sure we don't do things that we shouldn't do. He's very clear. Do you know any of the hidden ways in which you steal? From your neighbors, from the utility companies, anyone, anything? If you do, you must stop in order to stop compromising your character. I once heard someone say to me that if they ever stopped getting cable for free, they just wouldn't be able to afford cable anymore, and it would make it difficult to give what they like to give to the church. This is not in this church, right? Just so you know, making that clear. It would make it very difficult for them because I knew, this is a friend of mine, been a friend for years up in Cleveland, and he told me that it would make it difficult because cable was $150 a month for all the stuff he liked. And that would really cut into what he would be able to pay the church. It doesn't matter. Exodus 20 verse 15 says, "Thou shalt not steal." There is no quibble about that. Thou shalt not steal. Number 5, and this one I've got 6 pages of notes here on this one. Stop talking about other people. Right? Stop talking about other people is number 5. 2 Corinthians 12, verse 20. 2 Corinthians 12, verse 20. For I fear, lest when I come, I shall not find you such as I would, and that I shall be found unto you such as ye would not, lest there be debates, envyings, wraths, strifes, backbitings, whisperings, swellings, tumults. Now, for my own purpose, I also printed that in the English Standard Version, because there were a few too many therefore and thous in there for me to understand exactly what was going on. And it puts it very clearly. For I fear that perhaps when I come, I may find you not as I wish, and that you may find me not as you wish, that perhaps there may be quarreling, jealousy, anger, hostility, slander, gossip, conceit, and disorder. That's pretty clear. Gossip, deceit, disorder. Is there ever anything good that comes from gossip? Is there any possible positive outcome from talking about somebody else? Praying over somebody else, saying to somebody, "Hey, somebody needs some prayers. Come, let's do this. Can we write up something, a prayer request for somebody because they're really struggling? Hey, come help me with." That's not talking about somebody. It's two Christians coming together to find a way to help another Christian. False witness, even on the smallest level. has no good purpose, no good intent. Can you speak about someone else without your opinion jading your speech? Oh, I do it all the time. My wife is obviously not perfect. None of us are, but my wife is very good at, if I say something, she can tell if I put my jaded opinion in something I've heard in the news. And she's usually, I have come to learn this, that she has usually seen this story at least 6 hours before I have and read all about it. She's a very well-read person. She looks this stuff up. And I'll say something to her and she'll say, you got to put your slant on it, don't you? And it is just, oh, it's brutal, but it's true. Right? Brutal, but true. So, can you honestly speak to someone else without your opinion jading your speech? Without it adding color to your thoughts? Colorful. I have colorful thoughts. I have colorful words. Without it adding judgment. False witness, I said this before, even on the smallest level, has no good purpose, no good intent. A little white lie is a non-existent falsehood. There is no such thing. Little white lies do not exist. Lie is lie is lie. It's false witness. If you were God and had created these laws for His creation to follow in order to live peacefully with one another, would there be a little adulterer and a big adulterer? How about a person who hates their parents a little and one who hates them a lot? What's the difference between them? A little murderer and a big murderer? Is there a difference between the two? A little thief and a big one? A big one has more muscles, they can carry a larger couch? A bigger bag of loot? What is it? How about a little coveter and a bigger one? Is there a difference? Any falsehood leads to discord, whether amongst brethren or amongst family members. Man, I have put my foot into it more than once in my own family, right? More than once. You can ask my wife about it afterwards. Any false witness causes separation, division, and starts a downward spiral that can rarely be recovered without a spiritually mature people involved. All the people involved have to be spiritually mature. Don't even let it get started. Doesn't matter how it starts, whether it's small or big or whatever. It cannot be a lie and be repeated with a little bit of slant to it. You've all heard the experiment where if I whisper something in somebody's ear in the front of the room and they pass it around the room, by the time we're done it will be nothing like what it started with. It's exactly what happens. Don't let it get started. Bridle the tongue. James 3 verse 3. James 3 verse 3. This was so appropriate. James 3 verse 3. Behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths, that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which though they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. Even so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue amongst our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. Now, I did not look up the meaning of the words in there, so I'm going to take it at its word right now. But it doesn't matter. It boils down to Exodus 20, verse 16. It says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor." If you think about the world, think about what I started with, politicians, racists, doesn't matter who it is. The races cannot live together because the people that are representative of the races won't shut their mouths. They won't tell the truth. They slanted in the direction that they need to influence the people to get behind their cause. There is nothing good that comes from bearing false witness. Number 6. People just need to stop wanting things that are not theirs. They need to stop wanting things, coveting, right? They just have to stop wanting things that aren't there. David Smith gave a sermon, I don't even remember how long ago it was. It was last year's feast. It's about the number of wars that have been started. Just on a quick whim in the last year, I have gone through and looked for the cause of all of those wars. Every single one of them have been caused by coveting. Every single, we want that land. That's ours. We need to take it. Every war that has been fought by man since his rule has been fought over coveting. Exodus 20, verse 17. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. My question is this: who is your neighbor? I'm starting to think that every man, woman, and child that we come in contact with is our neighbor. The people that we have to work with. The people we are in the store with. I used to walk in and I used to say to the clerk behind the counter at the Speedway or wherever I was, man, it is crazy in here. How's your day going? Right? And sometimes they go, fine. Right? Then I'd go, ooh, ouch, I guess I won't ask again. And they'd laugh, right? But they never say any more. Or sometimes they'd say, boy, you nailed it on the head. You cannot believe the kind of people that have come through this door. And I just sat there and smiled, and I said, well, how long is your shift left? You have 40 minutes left. At least it's getting close to being over. Oh, yes, and thank God. Right? Doesn't matter who it is. Your neighbor is every man, woman, and child that you come in contact with. I said the other day that an advertiser's job from the date of your birth is to get every dollar that you have. How do they do it? How do they do it? One word: covetousness. They create a need you never even knew you had. Right? Like I said it the other day, the as seen on TV section is my favorite. Right? Because I got to peel an egg that easy. I have got to get Ginsu knives because I know that those are going to cut through cans, and I'm never going to have a problem with cutting through meat afterwards. They lied. They have to create the need. And Satan knows that there's a need out there, and there's something that is coming your direction, and Satan is going to make sure that he knows everything about you, all your weaknesses, because there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to man. There never has been. It's the same character that's been there forever, and he knows exactly what buttons to push. He's got the formula down to a science. You think Target is good? Whoo, you haven't seen anything like Satan. He's got an algorithm that says if this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens, they want this. He knows exactly what it is that connects the dots. So that's why down the side of your web page you get all the ads, and I still haven't figured out the Speedo ad, but I'm working on it. All right? You get all the ads down the side there. That's why it happens. Covetousness. Colossians 3, verse 4. Colossians 3, verse 4. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. Now, when I read that, I thought, wow, now that's something I could covet. That's something I could really want. And you know what? I didn't have anything pop up on the side of my web browser that said anything about it. There were no TV ads that pertained to it. There's nothing on the radio that pertained to it. But I thought to myself, that's something I could really want. Mortify, therefore, your members, which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, covetousness, which is idolatry. I'm going to read it in two different versions. Bible in Basic English puts it this way. Then put to death your bodies, which are of the earth, wrong use of the flesh, unclean things, passion, evil desires, and envy, which is the worship of strange gods. The English Standard Version puts it this way. Put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you. Sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. I'm seeing a trend. The other day I spoke about idolatry. I talked about how idolatry was one of the things that would keep you from loving God, from having a close relationship with God. Right? Well, here it is again. Covetousness. I'm going to turn over to Colossians 3:6. Colossians 3, verse 6. Colossians 3:6 says, right, we're there already, for which things sake the wrath of God cometh on the children of disobedience, in the which ye also walked, in the which ye also walked sometime when ye lived in them. But now ye also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. We talked about some of those the other day. We also talked about it today. Right? Lying, covetousness, that's filthy communication. Those are the things that are incorrect. Lie not to one another, seeing that ye have put off the old man and his deeds, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. These 6 principles build upon one another. When these 6 principles are followed, there's something that happens. When these 6 principles are not followed, there's something that happens. Have you ever seen an honest adulterer? Have you ever met one? How about an honest thief? Have you ever met one? Right? Have you ever met an honest murderer? Have you ever heard one? Have you ever met a murderer who hadn't stolen before? Right? Think about those. They all build on one another. If you don't follow one, you're going to follow none of them. Right? This world is filled with people that don't follow any of them. There are 6 principles that can build on one another. You can't have covetousness without adultery. You can't have stealing without covetousness. Murder and war never comes without first coveting something that someone else has. Avoid them all. Keep the commandments and be ye ready.